Here's Europe, and look at the British Isles. Right now we'll drop sea level. No British Isles.
That's incredible.
See, that's what I was saying earlier when we started talking. I mean, the world of 15,000 years ago was so dramatically different than our modern world that, it's almost difficult to conceive until you start looking at things like this.
And this was all during the Ice Age.
Yes.
And so the melting of the glaciers just changed everything as we know it. And this is while human beings were absolutely alive. So.
Absolutely. No question. Human beings were alive, yes. Okay. So we'll start looking at some of these pictures here. This is from western Montana. It says in Genesis 7:19, the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills were covered. I want you to take a look, because you can see many mountains in western United States, if you know what you're looking at, that have this on them. You know what those are? Those horizontal lines?
They look like where the shore.
They're shorelines. Exactly, they're shorelines.
That's absolutely what they are?
That's absolutely what they are. They're shorelines. Wow. Reaching right up to the very tops of the hills, you see. And basically what you had was you had this enormous gush of water filling these mountain valleys almost to the mountain peaks and then draining away. And as it drained away, it left this succession of shorelines etched into the hillside.
Wow.
And all along the pathway of the floods, we're going to see stuff like this. This was our first stop with Graham. This is La Tourelle Falls. This is that basalt I was talking about. Look at this stuff. There's layers of this basalt.
Well, that's you guys underneath it?
I don't think in this picture. I think I took this picture about 10 years ago. But yeah, I have pictures of me and Graham under there.
Well, you're so tiny. That's so crazy. It's so big.
Right. Now, here's what you've got to picture, Joe. Picture you've got this nice, gentle valley with a nice river, very pastoral scene, trees and stuff, probably, mammoths and herds of these animals grazing along the side of this peaceful river with gentle valley slopes. Here comes this massive flood, and we're talking about perhaps a flood wave 800 to 1,000 feet high coming through. As it comes through, it's ripping up everything in its path. And what it does is it now changes the profile of this valley from this gentle profile to down cutting 800, 1,000, 1,200 feet or more into the bedrock, right? So now, prior to the passage of this giant flood, you had streams and nice little rivers flowing into the main river, which in this case was the Columbia. What happens is after the passage of this flood wave, it sheared off the sides of the channel. So now, rather than a gentle slope, you've got sheer cliffs 400, 500, 600 feet high. These pre-flood streams and rivers come up, and they're now waterfalls. And that's what we're looking at right here in this picture, if that makes sense to you. And you notice how you've got this undercutting here. That undercutting only occurs when you have enormous, intense turbulence in the water doing this. You see, the water doing this will undercut. See, this modern waterfall here had nothing to do with the creation of this cliff. This cliff was cut, again, probably in a matter of days to weeks by the passage of these giant floods. And there's dozens of these waterfalls that are left. And these are called hanging valleys. They can be produced by glaciers, but they can also be produced by enormous, intense flood waves. This is your typical, not typical. This is a bar, a gravel bar, but in this case it's a boulder bar. Now, if you've ever done any walking along a river or a creek or along the beach and you've seen ripples in the sand, and they're typically, if you've got water that's a foot or 2 feet deep, you'll have ripples that are maybe an inch or two high. What we're looking at here is a flood bar that's 3 miles long. It's up to 250 feet above the modern river. And the ripples that you can see here are up to 50 feet in height and 350 feet in wavelength. This was produced, again, by gigantic flood flows. And if we look right over here, that's a 3-story building you see right there for scale.
Oh, wow.
So this gives you an idea. It's features like this that are just unequivocal in terms of realizing that this is not pseudoscience. This really happened.
And there's this date back to a very specific time?
Yes, to this 13,000 year.
So it's everywhere. Everywhere
Yeah.
you're seeing this. You're seeing it geologically, you're seeing it in ice cores, you're seeing it in fossils, you're seeing
Yes, yes.
Wow.
This is evidence of the big meltdown.